Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Montoya,
My name is Henry Wynn.
and today we have the very great guest, Dr. Yang.
Hi, guys.
So this episode is mainly going to be talking about Dr. Yang, and since she's our only guest today, we wanted to, help her be more introduced to the GSMST ecosystem, and have her have a little chance to speak more about what she does, how she does it, and anything she wants to let us know for the students to get to know her a little bit.
Yep.
Awesome. Right. Thank you for having me, guys.
Of course.
So first of all, is there anything you want to start off with before any of the questions start?
No, you guys lead the way.
All right. So our first question, which I'll let Henry take over for the first one.
Let's just start off a little bit simple.
Okay.
What is one thing students should know about you?
So many things. One thing, maybe more so of a personality thing, I really value individual humanity and seeing people beyond just faces and names. And so I do my best to learn names and faces, and usually I feel like I'm pretty quick at learning names and faces. Henry, Ethan. But I am open to going beyond that. And so my door is always open. So I pride myself in valuing relationships. And so my door is always open. And so I want everyone to know that my door is always open. So you can come in and chat with me about anything. You can ask me questions about whatever. I usually am a pretty open book. And if you ask, I will answer, unless it's like super strange or weird or not something appropriate to talk about. But you'll come into my office, you'll see pictures of my kids. And I try to have little knickknacks that are emblematic of who I am, my background, my culture. And so I love sharing those kinds of things. And I love learning about people and who you are, what makes who you are. So I think that's something that I value and hope that all of our GSMST kiddos know, that I am an open book and that my door is always open and you're always welcome to come and just talk about whatever you need to talk about. Mm-hmm. So I know sometimes I think the vision of like an administrator can seem intimidating for some kids, right? It's like, we are here to discipline. I think that's sometimes the perception. But that's not, and when I bring kids in to have conversations with them, I always take some time to get to know them a little bit. And that's not what my focus is. Like, we will get to the discipline, but I do want to get to know you as a human as well. What makes you who you are. And I hope that you don't see me as just somebody who is here for administrative, discipline-making kinds of things, but someone who is another human who has an interest in you and cares about you and is here to help you achieve your goals and your dreams.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know about you, Ethan, but for me in like elementary and middle school, this maybe middle school might have been because that was when COVID hit. It was when we were starting to get into middle school. But I feel like most of the people around me always saw like admin as like there for strictly like discipline and not like to be able to like talk to and get to know well and things like that.
That makes sense.
It was always like you talk to them when either you do something really, really good or you do something really, really bad.
Really bad, yeah.
And so it was never like, the like familiar connection isn't really put in that. And I feel like also as elementary schoolers, you're not really focused on that. You're more focused on like your friends or like going to play. But like, especially with you, it's very nice seeing how like an admin can like not be so intimidating. It can be like communicative, and we can go to you and it's like, oh, this is someone that we get to see and they're happy to see us. It's not like we say hi to them on the hallway just for like the formality.
Right. Yeah. Say hi, but you can ask deeper than that. You can go further than that. So absolutely. And I'll do my best as well.
And where exactly is your office now?
I am in the attendance office. So downstairs, ground level, right outside the Evolve stations. So you'll have to go into the attendance office. You'll see Miss Fleming first. And then my office is in the back there. But yeah, usually the door's always open unless I'm not here. And if I'm not here, we have walkies and radios. And so if you need to get a hold of me, but I can also be reached by email. So students can always send emails as well with any of your questions, concerns, those kinds of things. So, yeah.
So for our next question, we were going to ask, how has your addition to the admin team changed your view of GSMST previously to working as an admin and what it is now?
So I'm going to add a couple of contextual things to that question. So just so that everyone has a little bit of a basis of where I'm coming from. So prior to coming to GSMST, I worked as an instructional coach at the district office. I specifically worked in the multilingual learner program office where I supported teachers of multilingual learners. And so for folks who are not aware of ML students, multilingual learners, these are kiddos who come to us from another country and they haven't yet developed full English proficiency to be successful in their classes. So they just need a little bit of extra time and support. And so sometimes teachers get a little bit overwhelmed. They don't have the training on how to support the students when they arrive here in the United States. And so some of the work that we get to do at the district office is to support teachers. We build professional learning to help teachers learn how to teach their ML students. We try to help dispel misconceptions and deficit perceptions about multilingual learners so that way they're going in with a different lens and perception of how multilingual learners are. So that's the world that I worked in, and it's pretty different compared to GSMST. Multilingual learners are a very tiny population here at GSMST. We do have ML students here, but they're a tiny population. So I have worked peripherally at the district office with GSMST more so in my support of the other coaches who actually were supporting GSMST. So we as coaches support based on clusters. And because GSMST is a special entity, sometimes one coach takes all the special entities and sometimes we split them up. And so I don't think that I ever had GSMST, but I always supported my colleagues who did. And so whatever questions they had about GSMST and how to support the teachers here, the students here, that's always how I supported it. So I say that to say I didn't know a whole lot about GSMST prior to coming here other than whatever work we had already been doing at the district level. So I had a lot to learn coming in, a whole lot to learn. And the only things I really knew was that GSMST is kind of like a magnet school. I think that's language that is pretty common across the country. So when I say that to folks who ask what I do, when I say it's like a magnet school, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. And so in my own school district where I was growing up, and I grew up in Kansas City, so I'm not a Georgian at all. A transplant, like a lot of people, right, here in the Atlanta area. But we had a magnet school as well. And so when I talk about magnet schools, most people pretty much understand what I'm talking about. And so I had that perception. I knew that it was a magnet school. It was a high-performing school. But I knew Miss Mom. So not a lot of people probably are aware either that Miss Mom and I go pretty far back.
Oh.
Yeah. So Miss Mom and I always tell people we were kind of baby teachers together. So I started a few years before she came, but we both taught at Norcross High School. And that was where I first became a teacher. Taught world history, social studies, and I worked primarily with multilingual learners. And a few years after that, Ms. Mom came on board and she was a science teacher. And so that's where our paths crossed initially. And so our paths have, diverged and now converged again because here I am. But that when she reached out to talk to me about GSMST, it was an opportunity to learn a whole lot more. So I didn't have that much. So kind of like what I was saying, just to summarize, I knew it was a high-performing school, and I knew there were specific credentials requirements, eligibility requirements for students to be able to come here. But really, truly, there was not a whole lot that I knew. But some things that I've learned and picked up on coming here, high-performing. And I like to believe that I am a high-performing individual as well. So I've got all the markers of it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look deeply enough, you'll see high-performing people, we deal with a lot of stress and anxiety, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's something that I've always dealt with as well, is just stress and anxiety. You learn how to develop coping mechanisms and little habits to try to help you to deal with those kinds of things. And so in a sense, I kind of had an idea that like coming into the school, one of the things that, and which is why I go back to initially what I said about what I want everyone to know about me. I think we are high performing, but at the end of the day, we're still just people, human beings, right? And to love on people and to be a human in support of other people is the whole purpose of what I do. And so I love that I get the opportunity to be that here at GSMST. So I'm learning a lot more about what makes it unique, how you guys come from all over the district. And I'm learning about ways that I can support through my previous work. One thing that's really important that I've been called out on before in the past too, but I'm learning also how to lean into is changing the narrative, right? Sometimes we talk about things in very deficit ways, and we're not thinking about the opportunities that are part of it. And so sometimes we can get into that vortex of being sucked into negativity. But something I've been leaning into a lot lately is rephrasing things like I have to and I got to with I get to. So being at GSMST is an opportunity. I get to be a part of this incredible community. I get to be a part of this microcosm of the district, and sometimes that can be so challenging, right? Because like yesterday I was talking to Miss Mom about an observation. We walked through and we saw some really cool classrooms at Mill Creek. They have a STEM program as well. So we're learning a little bit more about what they do. And I was like, man, how nice would it be to be a part of this insulated community? I was like, that's the challenge with GSMST, right? We are all of the communities, right? I was like, that's the challenge. But if we reframe it, we can say, but we get to be a part of all the communities, right? We get to be in Shiloh and in Petrie Ridge and in North Gwinnett and Norcross and Meadow Creek. We get to be a part of all of that. So we get to have a wider breadth of our influence across the district and our community. So that was a long-winded question, or a response to your question, but I hope it makes sense. Like what my perception was very limited to what I get to see now, because now it's an opportunity to be a part of something really pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really cool. I feel like a lot of what GSMST is just a bunch of clusters of communities that come together at the end of the day. And although we may have like different backgrounds, it's not just like racial backgrounds. It's like what we do at our school is like we had different experiences in middle school, and we come together, and it's more of like we figure each other out. We see what works. Right. We see what doesn't work, and we talk about it. And then in some cases, we have classes together, and we don't discredit anyone because of their background. We discredit people based off of we don't discredit people based off of their background, and so we focus more on like what you are now, and like if you can show that extra mile, it's great. And if you have some kind of like insecurity about your past, that isn't really as much of an issue here because we all come from different places and everyone makes mistakes, and we understand that. And it's like we come together and like build this nice community. Right.
Isn't that a cool way to think about it though? Because you could say, man, I have lost my friend group, right? I've lost being a part of this community. I've lost the opportunities to, I don't know, play sports or be a part of that cluster that I was in before. But you could reframe that and say, now I get a chance to rebuild myself. I get a chance to be a part of something that I get to grow and to develop, that I get to own because I did that. I was a part of that. It's really pretty amazing.
It's like a checkpoint that you build off of, and you're like, maybe I made this mistake in the past, but now that I have a fresh start, it's like I can rebuild who I am as a person and like expand off of that. And it's really nice because it's like giving you a second chance to think and internalize who you are as a person and build. And I feel like you're a really good example of that, but like wanting to go the extra mile and wanting to talk to students rather than just being the admin that walks around. I think that's really nice.
Yeah. That is a goal of mine, to be so much more visible and to be around more, to talk to you guys more. The admin work is real, though. Like the depth and the breadth of the admin work is real. And Ethan, we were just talking earlier about what I spent my entire day doing, So I talked to kids today, sure, but I was sitting in a lab pretty much all day testing, So there are challenges that come with that as well, being an administrator, in as much as you want to spend your time getting to know your teachers and getting to know the kids, learning names and having deep conversations. Sometimes the day gets away from you. One of the things I learned really quickly coming here was how fast 6.5 hours go.
Oh,
Yeah, it goes pretty fast.
It just flies. And I had a friend who told me that. She's like, oh my gosh, the school days just fly by. And I was like, really? Maybe because when I was working at the ML office at the district, we were a regular 8 to 5 job. So we get in at 8, we get an hour for lunch, and then we leave at 5. But the schools are so totally different, right? So here at GSMST, our day starts at 8, we end at 3. So the opportunity to really interact and impact people is kind of confined within those 6.5 hours, So it goes by fast. It goes by really fast. Yeah.
Going back to the question, I remember you said that you were originally a teacher, and as students that always want to achieve higher things, what made you want to achieve to become your position now? And what gave you the inspiration for that?
To become an assistant principal?
Yeah.
So one of the most interesting lessons I've learned in my life is to stop saying, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that, right? When I first became a teacher, and part of my story and why I wanted to teach is because, like I shared with you guys, I value every person as a human being and think that you each bring something so unique and so wonderful to the world around you. And so being a teacher was an opportunity for me to play a role in just helping to spread that kind of love and compassion for people, right? And to inspire you and to help you to be able to achieve your goals and your dreams. So when I started teaching, fell in love with the group of kids that I was working with. So like I told you guys, I worked predominantly with multilingual learners, right? And some of that came from my empathy for my parents and for my aunts who immigrated to the United States in the early 80s. And I just wanted to be able to help people who were in similar situations that they were in when they first came to the US. And so I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And I told myself, I'm never leaving the classroom. I'm going to do this forever. I'm going to teach for 30 years. And then I went to grad school because, little secret, but that's not a secret. Teaching is not a job that pays well. And teaching is also not a job where you get compensation for going back to school. They don't pay for your grad school. So there are a lot of jobs out there that do offer incentives for people to go back to school. Not teaching, okay. You want to do it. You want to go back to school because it will help you to make a little bit more money. And so everyone knows that when they first start teaching, if you just have a bachelor's degree, if you want to make any money as a teacher, you have to go back to school. So I went back to school. And I went and got my master's degree at UGA, so go dogs. And in the process of doing so, I met a professor who invited me to leave the classroom and to come work with her on a grant. And I was like, wow, me? And I was like, but I'm not leaving the classroom. And everyone was like, you should see this as an opportunity to open doors for you. You never know where this is going to lead. And so I said, okay. And I jumped and I left the classroom. So I left the classroom. I ended up coming back because grants, this was a federally funded grant and it's a 5-year grant. And so at the end of the 5 years, you have to apply for a new grant. And so I left that position after 5 years were over. And I came back into the classroom and I taught middle school. So I was a middle school teacher at Sweetwater Middle School. And through my work at UGA, though, I got the opportunity to connect with people at the district office and found my way back up into the district office to work as a coach there. And while I was there, a lot of my leader friends and coaches and mentors were always saying, you should consider leadership. You should consider going back into a building and being a building leader. And in fact, one of my supervisors at the time said that if you really want to make an impact, if that's what you really are wanting to do most in your life, then you need to go back and be an administrator. And I said, no. I said, I'm never doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm never going back into a building. I'm never going to be an assistant principal. Who wants to do that? That's so hard. It's so much work, right? And so I said, no. And then after 5 years in that position, I started to reach a point in my career where I needed to look for an opportunity to grow. And that's something that I've learned a lot about in life is you can't get comfortable. If you start to get too comfortable, you need to figure out what else you can do to challenge you. And so the opportunity to go back into a school to be a building administrator presented itself. And I had a lot of support. And so I jumped. And here I am. So hopefully that answers the question. But yeah.
Were you ever scared to like go from one thing to the next?
Deathly afraid. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Fear of the unknown is real, right? I mean, who is not afraid of the unknown? It is terrifying. It's terrifying. I think one of the biggest fears that I had was, this is a very different context than what I worked in before. So like I shared, I was very well known in my world and respected, and I was a leader, and I knew that content well. And now I'm in a different space where it's not what I had been doing before. So I'm a learner now, and I'm not yet established like myself in that way where I feel confident about my competence to be able to lead and to do my job. I'm still learning, but again, if you want to grow, you can't get comfortable, and leaning into the discomfort is important. And it's a part of that process. And you have to just trust the process that being afraid and being uncomfortable is okay. But that's where I am every day. So if I'm smiling, I might still be like dying inside. So
I feel like that's good advice that I don't want to say a lot of people, but I think a good amount of people at this school need to hear that like it's okay to be like uncomfortable and feel discomfort. That's like how you can keep growing and be a better version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about too for our GSMST kids. One of the questions you pitched earlier was, like, what do I want to share with GSMST kids? And something that has been on my heart a lot in learning more about GSMST and the teachers and what y'all do. Trust the process. Embrace the discomfort. Take risks. Be willing to fail. I read a quote. It said something like, and I just printed it out. I put it in my office. It said, a mistake is only a failure if you don't try again. If you just allow it to just be as it is. It's okay to fail. It's okay to make a mistake because you can get back up and try again. And I think that that's something that when you are high performing, perfectionist. Okay, I know there's a lot of perfectionists out there, guys. In this building, lots of perfectionists, right? Are you all perfectionists? Do you consider yourselves perfectionists? Yeah.
Maybe for certain things.
For certain things. Agreed, right? Yeah, absolutely. But I think when you have that little bit of perfectionism in you, you have high expectations of yourselves, which is wonderful. It's great. But it can also be so debilitating, right? It can create sticky situations for you because you want to strive so high and to prove to yourself and to others that you belong here, that you are as good as you say you are, that they think you are, right? And so it might be hard to embrace failures for a lot of our kids, for a lot of our population, but I think that's something that's been on my heart, and I would love to just share with everyone that that's actually a great place to be. To make mistakes, to try again. I mean, that's typically how it is, though. And that's one of the things about how science works anyway, isn't it? Like we sometimes there are accidental discoveries, but sometimes we have to keep trying. We have to not give up. And so that grit and that persistence and that determination, that'll take you further than anything. And one of the things I've learned a lot about people in general, and I remember hearing an assistant principal say this a long time ago. She was like, I'd rather hire someone I can coach. I don't want to hire someone who thinks too much of themselves or thinks that they're already perfect. I'd rather hire someone who's not such a great teacher, but who I can coach. Because that mindset, the growth mindset and that learner mindset, I think will take you so much further in life. And so I hope that everyone continues to embrace that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not get something the first time. It's okay to ask for help. You know, it's okay to say, I didn't get that. Can you say it again? Can we try this again? Because that's the discomfort, right? And the discomfort is where we grow, where we learn.
I feel like as GSMST, when you're coming from middle school to like GSMST, it's like you were always told that you're the best and like you're the greatest and you're the smartest. And like when you get here, it's like now this is a group of the greatest, the best, the smartest.
Yes.
And so I feel like as much as GSMST is about like the academics and like the classes and everything, I feel like you also learn how to fail correctly. Like not everyone is at the same level of like knowledge on the specific subject. So people may know a little bit more than you, but that's not because you're not as smart, but that's because they're more interested in it or they have gotten more experience with it. And that just means that like you get to learn from someone else.
Right.
And having that experience to like fail and ask questions is humbling, and it causes you to like learn that, hey, maybe if I don't know it, that doesn't mean that no one knows it. That means I can ask a teacher or I can ask my friend or this peer, and that helps the community because we get to like talk to people and we get to meet people through the classes, but it allows us to more apply it into our lives. So instead of just thinking, oh, if I can do this one time, that means I understand it completely. No, that just means you did it one time, but maybe you can learn to do it a different way, or maybe you can learn from someone else and you just grow. And I feel like discomfort just builds growth.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
That is amazing, Ethan. Did you hear what you just did there?
What?
You reframed it.
I did reframe it.
You reframed it. You said, it's not oh my gosh, I'm not smart enough, or these kids are too smarter than me, right? You reframed it to, I get to be around kids who are pretty dang smart, you know? And that's the opportunity. That's how you shift your mindset to recognizing that you have a gift, that you've received a gift to be a part of this incredible building. Have you ever heard of the phrase, iron sharpens iron?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard.
Yeah, Henry.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron. I've been saying this a lot. And I remember seeing a quote, I think at Norcross a long time ago, it was a Martin Luther King quote about just how you can tell the quality of a person's character by who they hang around. And I think that reflects this statement, that phrase of iron sharpens iron. You being brought here to this school, coming here to this school, get to now be an iron among a bunch of other irons. And iron sharpens iron. And what you did, Ethan, was you were like, I get to be around these incredibly talented, gifted people. And if I don't know something, I now have like this pool of wisdom and of intelligence and this just fantastic gift of all these people that I can lean on and I can pull from to help me learn and help teach me. And to boot, I get to be a part of like maybe lifting up somebody else or sharpening someone else as well. And so that's a great reframe. So I love that. It's something for us to definitely keep in mind.
And I feel like that goes back to this community as well, because I don't think there's a single person in this building that if you ask for help would just say no outright.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they'd always want to try to help, and if it's like, oh, I'm busy, they'd always like, we try it another time, or maybe like we can talk tomorrow or next block day or whatever. And I don't think every time that I've asked for help, I don't think I've ever been told no.
Yeah.
From anyone.
That's wonderful because we all need it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We all need it. Have you guys ever heard of imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever felt that?
I think the first 2 years maybe. It's like you're getting accustomed to the ecosystem, so you don't really. So you feel like, oh, this person knows more in this subject, so maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, or maybe that I shouldn't be here because of X, Y, and Z. But it's more of I get to be here, and I should be here because I work to get to this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a very real and very common experience for high-performing people. You're always going to feel like, should I be here? Am I good enough to be here? Even right now, that's me every day, right? In a new position and in a really incredible school. I mean, what?
Yeah.
The number one school in the state, right?
Mhm.
And highly ranked across the country. And so, it can be real to struggle with this thought that, do I belong here? Should I be here?
Yeah.
But you can reframe it. I get to be here.
Yeah.
Right?
It's always about the positive and not about the negative.
Yeah.
So,
All right. I will think that is all that we have time for.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
all right.
Of course.
Do you have any final remarks you want to say to anyone listening to the podcast?
I think I've said plenty. Thank you.
Of course.
Of course. So that concludes today's episode 3 of the GSMC Gist podcast, season 5.
Wow.
All right.
Mhm. So, goodbye, everyone.
Bye,
Have
guys.
a good day.